Just wants to chop the front.
Yeah, just gonna have to chop off the front. All right.
A contract manager here at the Fortune Society and also a member of our Policy Center Collective. I am super excited today to be here with this great group of women. We're here to celebrate Women's History Month by highlighting women who impact public policy. So before I introduce our panelists, I'm just going to share a brief history about Women's Month and the conversation for today. The National Women's History Alliance is actually the movement that spearheaded that March be declared National Women's History Month. They announced that this year's theme for 2023 would be celebrating women in every community. Celebrating women who tell our stories. And their timely theme honors women in every community who have devoted their lives and talents to advocating for an equitable system, pursuing truth, and reflecting the human condition decade after decade. In today's town hall, we will be hearing from some amazing, talented group of ladies who I've just gotten to talk to briefly. I'm super excited for the conversation. And as they discuss their personal experiences, they're also going to be sharing more about their role in creating change for our communities. I just want to also take a moment to mention to the audience, if you do have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom, and we will designate time at the end of the session today to answer any questions. I'd like to start off by introducing our panelists. We have with us today Reverend Sharon White Harrigan. She's the Executive Director of the Women's Community Justice Association, also known as WCJA. Next, we have Diana Feliz Oliva, our Public Affairs Lead for Mexico and Latin America for Community Engagement and Advocacy. And last but certainly not least, we have Chaplain Dr. Donna Hilton, the founder and CEO of A Little Piece of Light organization. And again, thank you so much for your time. I know you guys have super busy schedules. We're really glad that you could dedicate just a few minutes with us today. And I'd like for each of you, if we could go around, possibly starting with Diana, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and the significance of Women's History Month to you. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. My name is Diana Feliz Oliva. I go by she, her, and hers pronouns, and I'm currently the Public Affairs Lead for Mexico and Latin America at Gilead Sciences, and I manage our community engagement and patient advocacy initiatives and strategies. I started in advocacy and community organizing and social work and public health policy at a very young age. I was right out of college in 1994, was employed by Fresno County Department of Social Services, and that's where my real advocacy and community organizing and public policy developed. And it's been almost 30 years since the day, coming up next year. And I happen to be a trans woman of color, proudly living with HIV, and I've dedicated my life for the last 23 years specifically raising the LGBT human rights and the trans rights and people living with HIV rights advocacy work. And what I get to do now here in Mexico and Latin America, and what I have been able to do at Gilead is to increase our corporate social responsibility imprint and developing some of the largest funding initiatives for not only trans-led organizations, but for many people living with HIV that are still being arrested and sentenced to up to 10 years for living with HIV. And I've dedicated my life to doing that specific work for the last 4 years. And hopefully I get to do that in Mexico and Latin America. But I come from a small rural town in Central California where being trans or being a part of the LGBT community and then having HIV is really stigmatized and discriminated against. And so I had to move to big cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York in order to be my authentic self and to have a voice for the voiceless. And now I get to do that on an international scale in Latin America and specifically Mexico. And so I have about 6 months in my new role. I'll be here for the next 2.5 years. And hopefully I can create some magic and some health equity. And hopefully that when I leave this Mexico and Latin American place, we've had to change some laws, we've changed some public policies, and that people living with HIV live with dignity and respect.
Thank you so much. Next, I'm going to pass this over to Chaplain Hilton.
Good morning. Thank you. I don't know how to go after Diane. That was amazing. Doing great work. I just want to say that. Thank you for that. So I'm Donna Hilton. I am the founder and CEO of A Little Piece of Light. and we are a woman-led organization that focuses primarily on the systemic trauma that has impacted BIPOC women, right? And so our primary focus, again, of women, young women, cis women, trans women, LGBTQ plus gender expansive folks in the spectrum who have been impacted by the traumas of police brutality, sex trafficking, poverty, right? Let's be clear, poverty is definitely a trauma. Incarceration, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, all those traumas, this foster care system, all those traumas that impact us and lead us to incarceration, and often sometimes don't lead us to incarceration. So that's our primary focus. And what we do, we like to call ourselves sometimes legislative organizers, because we focus on policy changes to do those incremental changes that are necessary in the moment towards abolition, whereas our primary objective is abolition. But we know having this walk that, it's going to take some incremental steps get to that point. And so that's my colleague Anaya. That's one of our young women, our lead facilitator.
Hi, hello.
You got her. Thank you. And so what we focus on, again, we do a lot of legislative organizing. We help to create and fight for, advocate for policies that will do those changes, and also advocate for those who need the support in areas in which they need it. And we know that this population of folks, our BIPOC folk, women especially, and gender expansive individuals need a lot more advocacy, because it remains of extreme lack of support in many areas. In housing, we know housing is a definite area of concern. Employment, of course, healthcare, to your point, Diana, healthcare within communities of color that are so lacking in resources, that we don't have good medical, dental, any kind of mental health, things like that. And so those are our primary focus. And of course, to get our people out of the system by any means necessary.
Thank you very, very much. And next, Reverend Sharon White Harrington.
Hello, all right, great morning. As you know, I am Sharon.
I see Sharon might be having some technical difficulties. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward, but as soon as she's able to come back on, we will make sure that we pause and allow her to finish her introduction. So I'd love to go ahead and get started and just jump. I have a question for Donna. Yeah, so Reverend Harrington will probably jump back on, but let's start off with our questions for the day. So Donna, your nonprofit organization, A Little Piece of Light, was named after your memoir. Can you tell us a little bit about your memoir, and also tell us about the organizations and some of the initiatives that you're currently spearheading?
So yes, thank you for recognizing that. Yes, the organization was named after my memoir, but it wasn't so much named after a book. It was named after my experiences and my call as a little girl, and my fight as a little girl to hold on to hope, hold on to light that would help me. Being a child that was trafficked and found herself in a new home with people that said now to call them mom and dad, right? When I already knew my mother, I knew my home. I might not have had a father, but I still had a home and family that I knew, was traumatizing. And then on top of that trauma, being brought to a country that she didn't know, I didn't know, and people I didn't know. On top of that, a couple of years later, to then start being sexually harmed and abused was extremely traumatic. And I didn't know. People often ask me, how did I survive that? How did I get through that? And I had to think about that. And in remembering and going through that process of remembering to, really deeply digging into childhood and, facing what happened. Can you see me? It seems like I froze.
You're
Are you able
frozen,
to
but
see
we
me?
can hear you. Yeah, it's going.
Okay, yes, it froze to me, so I apologize, but it's freezing. I told you Verizon isn't the best.
You did. Yeah, you did.
I did say that. So, looking at that and just like trying to, really trying to have an understanding for myself of like, how did I survive? What happened to me as a child? Who am I today? How do I become the true me? Because it's still going on. I recognized it was something that I always said and I relied on, and it was the light. So the first time of that particular trauma that started happening, that was the first thing that I did. And I looked to and I called out to, like, the light as a 9-year-old. And I realized I maintained that, I continued that. I always was looking for the light, holding on to it, and not realizing that was the thread of hope that I, as a child, I was holding on to. And so it just became my mantra silently and, unwittingly, just became my mantra just to, to survive. And so I thought it was fitting that, because I believe that every one of us has that light inside of us, if we could just find it and tap into it, hold on to it. And I believe that it will help us. We're not perfect individuals. We're not, by no means are we perfect. We're going to continue, to do some stuff and messy stuff. And, what I would like for people to do is just to hold on to something, right? Hold on and just believe. Don't let go of that hope. Don't let go of that belief. Don't let go of that self that might be buried under all the stuff that happens to us, all the things that people do to us, and the stuff that we do to ourselves, right? Don't get buried in that, right? Just to hold on. And I thought that, naming the organization that, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to help support our community of people to, for them to hold on to, like, this hope here. Nothing is impossible. We're not the worst things we've ever done. And we're going to continue to do bad. We're going to continue to do that, but we don't have to fall into that and be that, right? We can find ways to overcome and to, like, to redirect, right? And I believe it's the light that's in all of us. It's the light that we hold on to. So that's basically why the memoir is named that, and the organization is named that.
Thank you so much for sharing that testimony. And I do agree that we all just have to kind of hold on to that inner light to, keep us going in those days where, things around us are very dark. Can you also tell us about some of the initiatives that your organization is currently spearheading?
Yes, so currently we are, well, the not a new one, but a new one for us is 13th Forward campaign. We helped draft that legislation and work on the issue, because one of the things that I've recognized personally in my own methodology and theology of this work, of this space, that we can fight and make and gain these incremental wins, and we feel good about it, and we should celebrate them. But there's one albatross that continues to remain around our necks, and I don't care what, for me, I don't care what wins we gain, what we make and try to hold on to, none of them will matter if we don't get rid of that monster, right? The thing that creates and will allow for other opportunities to enslave people and to create these systems that fail us and continue to harm us, right? And that's the clause in the 13th Amendment, that slavery exception clause, right? And so for me, that's like the root of it all. If we can get rid of that, then I believe that we can create another way of doing things. We can get rid of the systems that exist that cause harm, and we can create other systems that can help people. right? Because we have that experience. We can do that together. But I strongly believe that the clause in the 13th Amendment has to be abolished, has to be eradicated, because if not, they will always find another way in which to enslave people and enslave Black folks. Let's be very clear, right? That was specifically Black and brown folks, that's specifically for us. And so while we fight these incremental wins, we can also go and try to take care of the monster that exists now that will continue to keep us enslaved, continue to create doorways for that enslavement to happen. So that's why it's important. That's why we're doing this work with 13th Forward. We also, the Close Rikers campaign, and I believe mostly everyone here knows that we did win that, right? We did win it. But where are we right now? We're stuck in everybody's politics, right? We're stuck in this quagmire of like, we keep hearing what is it now, Sharon? What is it? 2027, we knew. Let's now jump into 2029. Now it'll be 2031. And I'm saying, come on. We're saying that. It's enough is enough. We've won this, or we've been out there fighting. You know, we've gained this, we've won this. So why go backwards? Why are we going backwards? Why are we stagnated and looking like we're going to go backwards and things? Bail reform, like, you know, I've never really shared this, but like, you know, been behind the scenes in that, the Black Mamas bailout. Look how successful that was, right? And how we were able to get mothers home with their children for Mother's Day, you know, and stuff like that. Had events where we, you know, in certain areas where we're telling people, trying to get the public to understand that New York's bail reform law was important and instrumental, especially to its communities of color, which are the majority of the communities in the New York City area here, right? With the mostly populated areas, and why it's important and how it will harm us. And we tried to get people to understand that, and they did. And here we go again. Here we go again with the rhetoric to saying, oh, well, let's try to, you know, just focus on certain things. No, what you're doing is separating people, separating by class, separating by race, separating by gender, separating by so many things. And again, here we go. And again, that's why 13th Forward is important, because we can create they can create avenues in which to enslave people, use it in any way, you know, that they can. Bail reform, Close Rikers, 13th Forward, clean slate. You know, we support a whole lot of legislations, and we do what we can to support them and show up. And basically, we do that, a lot of it by storytelling. We tell people our stories, hopefully that they'll understand the harms and what happened, and to see us as individuals and human beings, and not to create boxes that they box us all in, and this is who we are, they're monsters, they're this. No, we're human beings just like you. We have stories just like you. We want to wake up and go to work and go to the grocery store and walk our dogs and see the sunrise and sunset just like you. If you would just allow people an opportunity, and not just give people a second chance, give them a chance. Oftentimes we keep saying the second chances, but people never had a first chance. And so these things are important, to get the story out, to fight for these things, to be a part of them, and to get the community to understand. And so as we organize, we're out there talking to people, getting them, you know, telling our stories, trying to get them to understand why it's important and how it will impact them. If they don't think that it would, you know, that they're impacted, or it's not in my neighborhood, it's not in my backyard, that's them, not us. No, that's not true. You know, so the work that we're all doing collectively in this area, I think is really important. And it's really important that we all continue to tell our stories, to tell them, hey, we just want a shot like you. We just want to be human beings like you. We want to wake up and see the sun rise and go to bed and see the sunset just like you.
That's right. That's right. Nothing beats, you know, humanizing our stories. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. We got Reverend Sharon back. Reverend Sharon, would you like to just tell a brief introduction about yourself, your background, and discuss why Women's History Month is important to you?
Okay. I apologize again, the internet.
It's
Okay. I don't want to talk about Verizon, but no. Again, you know, we're dope group of people, WCJA, we're a collective, you know, although I'm listed as the executive director, we are a team, and we're advocacy for justice organization. So we not only uplift the voices, but we elevate the issues, and we touch on every issue. It's not just one issue. We look at everything from Black maternal health to, young girls going to school and getting a proper education, young folks, being educated and being in the know. So what we do is everything, everywhere. We're currently on Rikers Island, where we actually are with the women. So because we can't elevate their voices, we can't speak to what's going on with them or even advocate for them if their voices is not included in it. And so we're pushing policy right now. We have 2 in the city, 2 in the state. You'll be hearing more about that. And we're also on this road to healing, right? And so not just healing justice, but there's justice in healing. And so, we want to really put that and disseminate that out into the community, because at the end of the day, when we talk about people in and out of the system, and we come from this baseline of trauma, that we have to understand that we can't talk about trauma without talk about healing. There's a lot of harm that has been done in and out of the communities. And how do we all bring it together? Because everybody has to be on the same page for this to work. And in order for that to happen, everyone has to be on that road and pathway to healing, right? Not just the victims or victims' families, but people who are impacted, people who also create harm. Hurt people, but heal people. So what Women's History Month mean to me, honestly, I can't even, I'm a woman 365 days out of the year. Let's make that clear, right? I don't need a month for people to tell me or put me in a box. You cannot box me or any of us for that matter. So, you gave us a month, don't placate us, we taking the year. So the month doesn't mean as much to me as the rest of the, January, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December, right? And of course, I forgot February, which is one of my favorite months. But I just think it's important that we stop categorizing and boxing ourselves or allowing society to do that. Oh, we're going to give you Women's Month here. Here's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Here's, Hispanic heritage. We're this all the time. You know what I mean? And the audacity to just kind of shave us down to a month. And then you want to give Black History Month the shortest month of the year. I'm Black all day long. So for me, it's like, what's more significant to me is understanding who I am and being comfortable in my skin rather than celebrating who I am and what I am in a month's time. You know what I mean? And it's just really coming up out of that, societal way of looking at us, right? Now I'm looking at y'all.
No, thank you for that. That's so powerful. Like you said, we represent ourselves every day. So I really appreciate, your feedback with that. I want to also pull Diana back in the conversation. So Diana, in 2017, you became the HIV community liaison at Gilead Sciences, making you the first openly transgender person hired by Gilead Incorporated in its 30-year history. I mean, that is groundbreaking. Also in 2019, you launched the largest funding stream for trans-led organizations in the United States. Can you tell us more about the initiative and just your experiences overall since being connected to the company?
Thank you so much. Yes, I actually started, in the nonprofit spaces as a Latina, as a Chicana growing up. My mom took us very early on to the boycotts of the United Farm Workers Movement with Cesar Chavez. and Dolores Huerta. And so I knew at a very young age, because I was born in this country and my mom wasn't, I had a very unique power and privilege in this country that my mom unfortunately did not have. And she told me, with great power comes great responsibility, and that you have to raise your voice and you have to fight for the voiceless and the ones that cannot defend themselves. And a lot of them were undocumented migrant workers. And so that was kind of my first introduction to the world of advocacy. And that carried with me into all my nonprofit workspaces. And I did nonprofit work for about 23 years because I thought, you know, as a Columbia University Ivy League graduate and a master's in social work, I thought that you had to be overworked and underpaid. I was a martyr for the cause. And then Gilead came knocking and said, we think you would be a great community liaison to educate and promote HIV equity and improve health outcomes in Los Angeles. And I wasn't a fan of Big Pharma. But I investigated Gilead and I saw the wonderful corporate social responsibility work, and they're the #3 funder around the world giving back to HIV organizations. And now we have many huge racial impact community funds coming out of Gilead, advancing health Black equity, advancing Latino health equity. So we're doing amazing things. But I started my role 5.5 years ago as a community liaison, and you know, educating our monolingual Spanish-speaking community members in Los Angeles and our trans community members, breaking down our product portfolio, and then also talking about sexual health and how is that different compared to other non-Latino, non-trans communities. And I noticed that there was a gap that we were not covering. And so about 1.5 years into my role, I created a rotation program for me. I left LA, went up to the Foster City, California headquarters office by San Francisco, and worked on a trans project. And out of that came the Transcend Community Impact Fund, which is a $5 million initiative for 2 years. And we renew it every 2 years to trans-led organizations across the country. And because of that, we've become the largest trans-led funder in the United States, and I probably would be safe to say in the world. And we have plans this year to expand it to Latin America and some other parts of the world where many trans-led organizations are springing up. And that was, you know, one of the proudest moments in my career, you know, back in 2019 when we were able to birth that initiative. And since then, and because I was incarcerated because of my HIV status back in 2001 and 2002, we created an HIV is not a crime initiative as well. And if you give me permission, I would like to share that as well, because I think that's really important, because we're seeing gay Black men, unfortunately, being the highest rates of incarcerations and sentencings. We have someone right now that's over 10 years still incarcerated, and there was no exposure or no transmission. And that's what people don't understand, that you don't need to have exposure or transmission to be arrested, sentenced, and incarcerated for these HIV laws. So there's still 30 states in this union that still criminalizes people for their HIV statuses. And it's mostly Black gay men, it's mostly Black sex workers, brown sex workers, and Black and brown trans women. And we need to create more education and more awareness around this, because it's a public health policy when we're criminalizing people with their HIV status. Instead of talking about sexual health, talking about early HIV testing and diagnosis. We know that HIV disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities at an enormous rate compared to our non-Black and non-Latino counterparts. And we know that, as Donna had mentioned, the system wasn't designed by us and it is not for us, right? But it's up to us to make sure that we create a system that is equitable moving forward. And so I'm really proud of the Transcend Community Impact Fund and the HIV is not a crime fund, because both of those initiatives were the largest funders in both those areas. Those are not only, you know, professional projects of mine, but because as a brown trans woman, as a Chicana, as an indigenous Chicana, raised in poverty, you know, for the first 18 years of my life, raised in the welfare system, in the Medi-Cal system, in the food stamp system program. I know what it's like to struggle with poverty. I understand what it's like growing up in my teenage years and confused about my gender identity and everybody bullying me and stigmatizing and assaulting me, right? And and suffer from mental health issues because of that, and relied on substance use. I mean, I can go on and on and on, right? All the isms that I've experienced, unfortunately. But I'm grateful that I'm at a point where when I was incarcerated the last time for my HIV status, and just to, to quote Donna, a little piece of light, came into the LA County Jail, and I had an aha moment. And I said, you know what, I'm going to continue the cycle of recidivism if I don't actually begin the journey of loving myself. And that means all of myself, from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet, externally and internally. And so I started the journey of first time loving myself. And when that happened, the power dynamic changed. So when I came out, I promised myself I would never be behind bars. I will never allow someone to take my freedom and my rights again. And 2 years later, I graduated from Cal State LA with my bachelor's in social worker. And then the year later, I went to New York and graduated with my master's in social work. And really, it was about creating public policy designed for brown people and Black people and people of color in general, and making sure that we change the system, that we are at an equitable playing field, and that we fix the broken system. And I actually am a proponent of actually developing a new system. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to move to Mexico and Latin America. I thought that we weren't doing enough. Many parts of the world, like Africa and Latin America, are still rising in cases of HIV. And our company, unfortunately, is not doing enough. And so when I said, hey, why don't I create an international role for myself and make an impact on those HIV rates in Latin America? I'm bilingual, I speak both languages, and I really could lead the public affairs function there in Latin America. And so again, I took the initiative, I proposed the idea that I had, that I saw a gap and a challenge that we were not meeting for our patients. And 6 months ago, I got relocated here, and I'm in Mexico City, but I get to cover Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean islands. And so I'll be traveling extensively a lot for the next 3 years, and hopefully creating community-led solutions. So by the community and for the community. And so we just had our first community listening session here in Mexico. So we invited NGOs and activists and leaders, government institutions, and we are committing ourselves to meeting every 3 months, to coming up with an action plan, developing accountability and KPIs and metrics, to making sure, are we changing the face of HIV? Are we ending the epidemic of HIV in Latin America? Are we eradicating stigma and discrimination so people can be their authentic selves and not fear HIV, not be stigmatized by HIV, and not be discriminated most of all?
Powerful. I don't know about you guys watching, but I mean, Diana, your testimony, Donna, what you shared, Reverend Sharon, you guys are really changing the game out here and really trying to make this a place that's safe for all women and all people in general, especially, I really just admire each of you for the work that you do, sincerely. I also just want to remind our viewers to please submit any questions you have in the Q&A button at the bottom. We have a limited time, but if there are questions, please ask them so that we can have them answered. This doesn't happen every day where we get to meet with, the policymakers and leaders here. I want to go back to Donna really quickly. Harm reduction is a big component of your advocacy for legislative change. Would you be able to give us an overview of what that means and share with us the significance of incorporating harm reduction in policymaking?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Carla. So one of the things that I recognized for me in this journey, when I was healing, right? Because I'm still healing, going through that process. When I first started it, one of the things I recognized was you couldn't make me talk. You couldn't make me open up and tell you what was wrong or what had happened. You couldn't do that because I wasn't ready. And sometimes it takes time for a person to be ready, open enough to be able to talk about those things that hurt them or where they're at, or might not even know. So I recognized early that people had to meet me where I was at, because oftentimes people were forcing me to talk, forcing me to say things, forcing me to tell stuff, forcing me to tell a story, forcing me, pulling something out of me that was not ready to come out. And so I try to remember that in this work, in this space, just in life in general, right? It doesn't even have to be just in this work. It's just in this life, you know, like we oftentimes are pulling and telling people what they want, what they need, what they should have, what they should get, how they should do this, how they should do that, without really listening to a person and just hearing it, what it is that they feel, what they want, how they see things, and just letting that just sit, right? And so the more that we force things and we try to make things be a certain way or make people be a certain way we want them to be, the more harm we cause, right? We cause it in so many different ways that we don't even recognize. And I'll be honest, I still cause harm and I don't recognize it, you know? When I do, I have to step back and look at it and like, okay, and hopefully not repeat that. You know what I mean? And so we do our best to try to do that in our work. Especially because we do a lot of work with young women and because we do a lot of RJIPV, which is restorative justice, intimate partner violence, and domestic violence work. And unfortunately, a lot of our young women are impacted by this, especially, I mean, it's always been there, but for some reason, I feel that it's even more because I feel like the stuff that's happened during the pandemic and the way the economy and everything is going, we already know our communities, you know, are impoverished and lack. And so it seems to be more of that I think, you know, just try to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more mindful, a little bit more cognizant of people. It's like cultural sensitivity, basically. You know, meeting people where they're at, understanding where they come from, understanding what's going on, what's happening in their lives, just understanding. And the best way to do that is look at yourself. Like I often have to remind myself, okay, how were you feeling? What, you know, how were you when people were trying to pull you to do some, force you to say something or do something or be aware of something, or, you know, and it's just really, really trying to stay mindful, you know, of that. And I feel that that's how we can better reach people. We can, you know, we can create a community of us that understands this and maybe become a little bit more understanding with each other. So we can become more understanding with each other. Then I think that we can approach the work differently and get those that we are saying, hey, look at us, we're human beings too. We've done some stuff, we've probably been some ugly stuff, but hey, I'm just as human as you. I'm gonna make those mistakes, I'm gonna be whatever, but does that mean you write me off?
Can I add?
Go ahead, Shin. Can't hear you.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Policy affects change, period. And so it's important that on that level, when we talk about meeting people where we at, that it's important that even on that stage, on that level, right, that people, because law and trauma never meets. It don't meet in a courtroom. It don't meet in the legislation. It doesn't meet. People don't connect it unless you're on the ground doing the connecting. So it's very important that we as people, that we fight to be in these places, not just to story tell, not just to tell our narrative, but that the issues that we battle is connected to the policy so that change can be made effectively and that it's in place so that harm doesn't continue, you know? So as we, you know, in some things, harm just won't be, you can't just eradicate it without reducing it first. So here are the pieces, right? And it takes all of us, right? Service providers, advocates, organizers, and then the policymakers, the legislators. All of that is so that we understand the issues, we identify the issues, but the solutions come through policy. So we're going to need you to not only hear what we're saying, understand what we're saying, but doing something about it and holding them accountable. And that's why it's important that those dots is connected. I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, thanks for jumping in and adding that, because it's true, it's important. right? There's so many layers to this, right? But I think for me, as we do the work more, we get into this and the work that we're doing, right? We learn some more stuff, right? We learn some more, we see some more stuff, we understand some more stuff. So it doesn't just apply to outside, it's personal too, right? It's for us as well. And so how better can we be today than yesterday? How better can we apply whatever it is that we've learned and, these things towards creating these changes, these policy changes that are very important, right? And I just, every day is a little less. And then the way to do that is be gentle with self too. Because oftentimes we are our worst enemies. We're our worst, our harshest critics are, and we understand why. And as Black women, let's be clear, we have so much, and I have to differentiate that for me. There's so much stuff that we're expected to do and to be and to overcome, right? And it's a lot. And we just, how do you make time for that? How do you find time? How do you even know how to even like see that, in the moment? Sometimes you can't. And all these things are important. And to Sharon's point, we have to, come to that place where we understand this, hopefully, and utilize it to affect those changes. They have to meet at some point, but make sure that, they do connect. And I think that we're doing that. I think that we're doing it. We might miss the marks in some things, but hey, who doesn't? But I think overall, us, we're doing that. We're meeting that. We're doing it. And I feel like that's why we've been able to have these incremental wins, right? These incremental changes. And that why we say, okay, all right, damn, the fight's not over. I got to get up today and I got to go to City Hall. All right. Got to go to Albany. I got to go have this meeting with this one. Got to get on, we know it and do that. And so again, to the point where we were talking about before we even got on here, is just how do we find that space to just like say, okay, we have to exhale for a second.
Yes.
Exhale for a second.
Yes, it's definitely a challenge, I think, with, Black, Latina and Latino women, and just women in general, like, women, particularly once you've entered the workforce setting, it just brings on an abundance of challenges that, we often don't consider and our counterparts don't know of. But, that's why, I really appreciate events like this where they do take the moment to listen to us. They do take the moment to try to learn about our experiences in this work and just personally. I want to go back to Diana really quickly and just talk about, if you would be open to it, during your incarceration, what was the level of attention to women's health, and in particular transgender women's health?
We're talking about 20 some odd years ago, so there was no attention to women's health or trans women's health in LA County Jail. However, it was the beginning of a time where LA County Jail was separating trans women from the main population and putting them with gay men and segregating gay men and trans women together for safety reasons, right? Because LA County Jail is one of the most horrendous incarcerated systems that we have in this country. And so not only did we have lack of healthcare, and if you were on your hormone replacement therapy, you were denied that. They wanted to test you for all the STDs and STIs in the world, but not give you any prevention strategies or support or tools and resources afterwards. And so it was really difficult to navigate the healthcare system there. You're stripped of your voice, you're stripped of your rights and your freedoms, right? And so unfortunately, the healthcare system was non-existent. Because of that experience, I got together with a group of trans Black women and trans brown women who historically have been incarcerated. We came together and created policies with the LA County Board of Supervisors, and we changed the system within LA County Jail. So now there is trans health care in LA. Now there is access to HIV testing, to OBGYN care, to reproductive health care if necessary. And all our basic medical care needs are met. And that took many years of meeting with the LA County Board of Supervisors, boycotting and protesting their Board of Supervisors meetings. and making sure that we had local attention from policymakers and community organizers and organizations that were supporting trans rights at that time. And so I'm happy to say that we were able to change the practices of healthcare and access to healthcare for trans women, and then making sure that those places were safe, because not only we were having lack of healthcare, but we were also being abused by the correctional guards, which happens quite frequently for women across incarcerated systems in this country. That is, sometimes it's not our own inmates, our fellow inmates that are abusing and assaulting and accosting us. It's actually the system, the power brokers, the correctional guards, the warden, the people are there to make sure that it's a public safe place. Those are the ones that are probably most abusive with their power. And so we were able to change some of those laws as well.
Thank you so much. And this just goes back to, the full conversation, but what Reverend Sharon mentioned about just the truth and humanity that really informs the policy. The more truth that people share, like you're sharing, Diana, and your colleagues, the more truth we're telling about our stories, our previous trauma, as Donna mentioned, that's really how we're going to get policy to change. It can't be someone who hasn't experienced some of these things that makes the policy changes. That's why we're still in the place we're at. But the more people can, be more humane, talk to one another, just become more informative, the more we're going to actually make, sustainable changes for the people who are dealing with it now and generations to come. So I really appreciate each of you again. I wish we had, an additional 30 minutes. This conversation is just so dynamic, but we are going to begin to close. And I just want to give a moment for each of you to kind of talk about just closing remarks, starting with Reverend Sharon. What would you like to leave people here with today?
That it's first and foremost that it's just important to take care of yourself first. We do a lot of this work. I'm sure that everybody that is on here listening, including the panelists, that we're on the ground doing the work, or some form of work that you're doing within this movement. And so it's important. We talk about self-care a lot, but we don't put it in practice. And so I want everyone to take away that as much as we talk about the work and all the things our agency is doing and this, that, and the third, that we should be taking care of ourselves first, because we just have this way of taking care of everyone else. And so we have been in this movement, some of us, for a long time, and there's burnout and there's exhaustion. There's all of these things. And so before we can continue to do all of this, self-care is a must, not aftercare, not after we are made to have to sit down and take care of ourselves, but before that happens. So that's what I just want to put out there, because we talk about work all day long. It's time that we talk about us, our own healing, our own wellness, our own mental health care, and then we can talk about what we do for others. So that's what I leave for you, with you today, Ashe.
Thank you. And then also, where can people find you and contact you online?
Just go to our website, www.wom, as in Mary, ENSCJA.org. So it's womanscja.org, and you find all the information there. Sharon at WCJA.org, Leah at WCJA.org, Tashoy at WCJA.org. Always available here for you.
Thank you so much. Diana?
I think, Women's History Month is hugely important. As my fellow panelists have mentioned, we're women 365, 24/7, right? And many of our issues are intersectional, right? Black issues are brown issues. Trans issues are Black issues. Our issues are immigrant issues, language justice issues, incarceration. I mean, we are connected forever as long as we live. And we need to remind ourselves that oh, well, that's just the Black issue, or that's just the brown people's issues, or no, that's just the LGBT issue. No, all our issues are the same. We want humanity, and we want rights, and we want freedoms and liberties that were promised to us in a piece of paper that were created by old white men. And we're going to hold them accountable to making sure that those rights and more are coming down the way, right? And so I want to just congratulate and celebrate Dr. Donna and Reverend Sharon for their amazing work. And that we continue to commit ourselves to this fight, right? To continue to advance equality, justice, and opportunities for all women in all spectrums, and making sure that, as Sharon said, that we need to practice self-care as well, mental health. I get battle fatigue from time to time, and I have to reconnect with my sisters, with my mom, with my little dog, and making sure, because sometimes when I stand up in the mirror every morning, those committee in my head says, you're not worthy, you're not beautiful, you're not talented, you're not smart, you're an imposter. I have to replace those negative messages with saying, no, you are a badass, you are a rock star, you are awesome, you are worthy, you are deserving, and you are a leader for people that need to be inspired and motivated by. And so I just want to congratulate the Fortune Society for having me on this panel, and I wish everybody peace, love, and soul.
Thank you, and congrats to you. Like I said, you are so dynamic. You have such a story to tell, and I am so thankful for you and just being here included with us. And can you also just share how people can get in contact with you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Lady Diana72. I'm on Twitter at Duchess Diana72. I'm on LinkedIn profile at Diana Feliz Oliva, on my name there, and then on Facebook too, Diana Feliz Oliva as well. If you want to send me a message via email, you could always reach me at diana.oliva@gilead.com.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Donna, can you just share some closing remarks?
I think my sister said it all, actually, but I do want to leave with this, piggyback on Diana, because I usually do end with this. So I think it's fitting that everyone, don't ever forget that you're beautiful, amazing, brilliant, wonderful people, human beings. Like, don't ever let anyone convince you differently, right? Because there's so many things that can convince us differently, and people can convince us differently. And we start believing it and owning it and becoming that, right? Let's stop believing that. Just know that you're beautiful, amazing, brilliant, talented, brave, resilient, strong, to Diana's point, and also to Sharon's point. I just want to re-emphasize that, right? Let just not just celebrate a month or a day. Celebrate yourself every day. Celebrate yourself every single day, right? Give yourself, we don't have to wait for anybody to give us flowers. You give yourself your own flowers. I put a post up about that the other day. Went and bought some roses, right? It's like, let me just buy them. Why not? I should do that for myself. Just the simple things, even if it's just taking a walk that you want, just hold on to that and just know that you are the best thing that God created. Period.
Thank you so much. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, a little piece of light.org. We can be contacted there. Social media, my name, Donna Hilton. I think most of my social media sites have my name. Our organization, A Little Piece of Light, also has social media. You can get an email, dhilton@alittlepieceoflight.org. My colleague Sharonda is here as well. So S. Patton at alittlepieceoflight.org, our communications person. And just reach out. It's not hard. We're not hard to find.
Excellent. And on behalf of the Fortune Society, again, thank you so much for just contributing your time today, contributing your stories and your personal testimonies, and just talking about the work that you all are doing. We're so thankful for you and your time today, and just all the impactful insights that I'm sure people here who are watching today and those who will see later online, it's going to change lives. And thank you for continuing to do the work that you do endlessly. And I hope everyone here has a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Be well, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Diana, great work, Diana. I sent you a
So
text.
good. So good.